Hi, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate Rural Talk Radio, which is a subsidiary of Global Media Network LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. Folks, I am so honored to have with me today Dennis Volpe. He is a retired commander of the United States Navy, yay, veteran, and I'm always honored to have veterans on my show. Dennis Volpe wrote this wonderful book, Transition on Purpose, #1 best-selling international author. It's a bestseller. And I read the book, and I found it highly inspirational, and I highly recommend it. Dennis Volpe serves as a principal consultant and executive performance and transition coach with the Leadership Research Institute. Dennis is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, earned his Master of Science in Leadership Development from the Naval Postgraduate School, and is a Columbia University certified executive coach. Dennis's understanding of leadership comes from his over 20 years of leadership and operational experience as a career naval officer, to include teaching leadership at the United States Naval Academy, serving in numerous leadership roles of increasing responsibility to include command at sea, and from a variety of academic and intellectual pursuits. Dennis has experienced personal and professional success, professional setbacks, and knows what it takes to live a resilient life. Dennis is very involved in his community as a mentor coach, supporting military to civilian transition programs, as well as participatory hands-on leadership programs for emerging leaders. I want to welcome you, Dennis Volpe, to Chatting with Betsy.
Betsy, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to our conversation for a long time.
Yes, I have to tell you, Dennis, I have to start this. I'm starting the show a little different, and I just go where the flow is. Can I read something from your book?
Sure.
This is... I don't know what chapter this is from. It's from mentorship, ACP. And I really like this, what you said. I learned that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, but one of personal strength and courage. Can I tell you how I love that? I love that. So true. I say the same thing myself many times on my show, that it is not a sign of weakness. And I'm so glad that you had this in your book, Dennis, because you're a man. So, when a woman says it, men might think, you're a woman. It's okay for you to ask for help, but not so much if I'm a guy. But you have this in your book, and you're brave enough to share that, and I just want to compliment you about that, because it's really important, I think, for other men to see and hear that it's okay for a man to ask for help. So I had to start the show with that. Something just told me to do that.
No, I appreciate it. And I was just at a Christmas party for a local construction company up here in New Hampshire that I've done some coaching with and everything else. And so I got invited, and the owner was talking about our relationship, and he talked about, he has a huge personality, and he talked about how his ego was pretty big, and that I was able to help him with his mindset, because I actually changed the word help to support.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people out there that don't want to admit that they need help. So if we just change the paradigm, change the word to, I need some support here.
Oh, I like that.
It's a much easier ask for people to make.
Yes, because I think saying, "Oh, I need support," maybe sound better to some people than to say, "I need help."
Yeah. And you know what?
Yes.
If that's all that's required for folks to say, yeah, you know what? I do need some help. If using the word support helps them ask the question and reach their hand out, then even much better. So.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I interviewed someone this past summer talking about, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they want to get the name changed to post-traumatic stress injury because it sounds better. People might accept that more. And I'm just made me think of you saying switch help to support. That might also encourage people to, reach out. You're absolutely right about that. I always ask the authors that come on is, what motivated you, inspired you to write this book? Which is short, folks. I want to say this is a short read, but let me tell you what, it packs a powerful punch in a good way. In a good way.
Well, the interesting part for me is, again, you talked in the intro that I've had a lot of professional success. I've had some professional setbacks, and that setback is part of my story. And I had a lot of friends, I had a lot of colleagues that talked to me about, you need to share your story, and they were pretty persistent. So the motivation for it was really to help me deal with, some friends and colleagues that were trying to provide support and to turn it off. What do I mean by that is I was like, you know what? If I write this book, they're going to stop telling me I need to write a book. So that was the motivation, was literally to turn off the noise a little bit. And but the key thing, Betsy, for me was I just wanted to be helpful to others, because my story is not unique. Right? There's a lot of people that have had professional misfortune and have had to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and start moving in a positive direction. Right? So it's not unique, but it's very, very personal.
Yes, and you know what, Dennis, I have to say this when I read your book, and I read it a while ago, so forgive me if I don't remember everything. I was a caregiver, and I have a huge caregiving audience. This book, to me, can help a caregiver in a circumstance. It's a mindset. I always said it's I encourage people in my support group. It's a mindset to make it through caregiving and to survive and thrive and enjoy life afterwards. To enjoy life, even if you lost a partner or spouse, you can move on. You don't forget the loss. You don't forget your pain. It's there. But you can move on and find your passion and your purpose. And that's what I got from your book.
100%. And the biggest thing for me when I think about change, right, because if you're a caregiver, there's a lot of change that happens, right?
Yeah.
Change is a fact. Change is a fact of life. Mm-hmm. Transition is all about the choices that we make about the change we experience. And, those choices are better when they're more informed and when they're more intentional. And how do we make sure that they're more informed and they're more intentional? We need to spend some time on defining what purpose means for us. What does purposeful work mean? What does a purposeful life mean? And for me, it starts with, how have we defined success? What does success look like? What does it feel like? How can you use all of your senses to really describe success? And then I talk about, putting all of your passions, because passion is energy, putting it in a box of purpose. And, what does that purpose box look like? Well, it starts with that definition of success, but then we have to spend time, Betsy, saying, okay, what do I value? What are my core values? What do I need to be part of my life moving forward? And then once we identify that, well, what am I good at, right? What are my strengths? What are my areas of genius that I can be useful to others and be useful to my community, be useful to the world? And once we kind of know what success looks like, feels like, smells like, we know what we value, and we know, what our strengths are, our areas of genius, well, then you need to explore a little bit more in terms of what are you passionate about? What really matters to you? What puts the fire in your belly? And ultimately, what are the problems that you want to be a part of the solution for? But the other thing is, and the really big personal piece, beyond success, beyond values, beyond strengths, is what matters right now in terms of what is the current priority, so that way you can, no kidding, focus your energy, attention, and effort on what matters. And then the last part of that box, Betsy, is who do you want to solve the problems with, right? Who needs to be part of your team? Who needs to be part of your tribe? Who are those people that are going to provide that support that we talked about earlier? And when we do that, when we really know how we look at success, we really know what our values are, we know what our strengths are, we know what our passions are, we know the problems that we want to solve, we know what we're trying to solve for personally and professionally in terms of our priorities, and we know who we want to solve them with. That's purposeful work.
Yes. You talk about finding a team, getting your team together in your book, being with people who will support you in what you want to do. And that's very important. How do you find that team, Dennis? How does someone go about finding that team to work with?
Well, a lot of it is, I think it's Proverbs 13:20. If you walk with the wise, you'll become wise. So I was on a friend's podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about if you are the smartest guy or gal in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Oh, I like that.
How do you find people who can hold you accountable? How can you find people who are going to challenge you to be better today than you were yesterday and better tomorrow than you were today, and who share the same values, who share the same mindset, who share the same expectations? And, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to the United States Naval Academy. And the relationships that were forged there, the relationships that were forged during my time in the military. And, one of the groups that I'm a part of now is the Surface Academy Business Mastermind Group and 10X Vets. And they're mastermind groups, they're accountability groups, they're networking groups, but they provide the opportunity to spend time with like-minded individuals who have a shared experience. Whether it was at a service academy or whether it was in the military. And when you have that shared experience, there's something that happens faster, and that's trust. Because of that shared experience, trust happens faster. And trust is what makes team effectiveness happen. So when you think about how do I find those groups? Well, it's about finding that shared experience and finding those people that share similar values and similar expectations. And I think with those groups, making sure that it's at the right time for you, right? What are you trying to solve for now? Because there's tons and tons of groups out there. So you need to make sure that it's applicable to you right now with what you're trying to do personally and professionally.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Dennis, you gave such wonderful gems right now that it is important. People, I think sometimes they're afraid to be successful because they're worried about what others think. Oh, if I don't associate with them, what will they think? They might think that I'm better than they are. It's not that you're disassociating yourself with your friends, but you need a team. You need people who will encourage you. So if you're with people who are discouraging you, you need to find different people. And
100%.
I totally agree. I have to say, and that's just because I'm with Passionate World Talk Radio, but Lillian Cauldwell, who's the CEO of Passionate World Talk Radio, and Jeanne, who's the station manager, they were the best mentors I've ever had. For someone to see something in you that you don't see in yourself and to encourage you and help you, support you, is so wonderful. I never had that experience until I met Lillian and Jeanne. And, sometimes I used to wonder, I don't see what you're seeing. And that's what we need. We need someone to point that out to us because we don't always see our strengths. We see our weaknesses first, I think. I know I do. And for someone just to, just to encourage us. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful when people take the time to mentor someone, or you find someone who, like a mentorship. That's so important in trying to reach the goal that you want. And I know in your book, and I love the quotes that you have in your book too. You have these quotes in your chapters. And you know what, Dennis, I think like you're talking about being successful, and I think people are afraid to try something because they're afraid of failing, and then if I fail, I'm not successful. But to me, failing is not even trying. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. We make mistakes, we fail, but I heard someone say the very successful people don't dwell on their mistakes. They learn from them, they don't consider it failures, and they move on. You can't stay stuck in if something didn't work out for you. You have to learn from that and go on.
100%. And I'd like to, backtrack a little bit on what you talked about in terms of, sponsors and mentors, because I've had the awesome opportunity to support American corporate partners as a mentor, and it has been awesome for me. It's been energizing for me, but it's also a way to give back because I had a mentor through that program that helped me during my transition from military service. And when I get the opportunity to be a mentor, one of the things that we talk about is building your own tribe and who needs to be a part of it. And you talked about those energy vampires, the ones that are constantly pulling you down, rather than the energizers, the people that you plug into because you know that they're going to lift you up. And but where do you start? Where does your tribe start? And I like to use, a term that I learned during my time in military service, and it's your own personal quick reaction force, right? Those men and women, those 5 to 10 people that are always going to answer your call, regardless of the time of day, regardless of the topic, they're always going to answer your call, provide support, provide accountability, and help you get to where you want to go. That's where you start. And then you expand from that, because mentors are important, right? Because what do? I mean, they show us the way, right? Because they've done it before, and they have perspective and they have insight. But what we also need are sponsors who are very similar to mentors, but they're like a mentor 2.0, because not only do they show us the way, they actually clear the way for us and provide opportunities that we may not have seen. And I think that's what you described. And then who else do we need? Well, we talked about what we don't need. We don't need the energy vampires, but we need the energizers, right? Those people, when you're having a bad day, you can literally call them up, text them, and plug into them, because you know that once you get in touch with them, you're going to get energized. And then connectors, people who are going to connect you to other like-minded people. And then obviously, just because of the work that we do and everything else, we need to have trusted colleagues. And then ultimately, the other person to add to our tribes are catalysts, folks that are going to help us create opportunities so we could pursue that definition of success that we talked about earlier. So, when we think about our tribe, we got to start with that QRF and then expand to include mentors, sponsors, energizers, connectors, trusted colleagues, and catalysts.
I love that. And I love to connect people to other people. I do that a lot. I have a guest. I have a friend who has a podcast, and I'm like, oh, would you like to be on my friend's podcast? And, to help someone, especially if they're getting started, they want to, they have a book they want to promote, they have a business. And I know that, hey, I think you would be a great guest for, my friend's show. And I think, Dennis, when people help each other and support each other, it's so much better. And I don't know why more people don't do that. And people might get mad when I say this, but I really find with women, I don't know about with men so much, but I find with women, they're not as supportive to each other as they should be. And it's not a, competition. I have a support group. I welcome other people who have podcasts, who, teach, who hold, webinars, seminars. I want people in my support group to be able to connect to these people and learn from them. I know I don't have all the answers, I just think that's wonderful to connect people. And I love that.
So I think, Betsy, for me, my experience has been the exact opposite. And what I mean by that is, and maybe it's because I'm in the veteran community, but anytime I have asked a veteran to help with something, they have always said yes. And look for opportunities to support me as I've been going through, my transition journey. And those folks that are connected to the veteran community always say yes. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to asking for support is making yourself easy to help. And because very often people are going to say, hey, Dennis, what do you need? And if you could be very specific, like there's this podcast that, this lady Betsy runs, and I really like, the way she approaches things, and I would love an introduction. If you could be that specific, people will absolutely take the time to support you and where you're trying to go. And the key piece, I think, to all of it is when you make yourself easy to help and somebody makes the effort to provide that support, say thank you. Because I can tell you there's been a lot of times where folks have reached out to me on LinkedIn and other places, and I've provided support, I've provided a connection or whatever, and sometimes they don't say thank you.
Oh, yes.
and then they're surprised when the second ask happens and you're not as, readily energetic to provide that support again.
I know that feeling. I do. Absolutely. A lot. People come on the show. I'll just give this as an example. And, I know I cannot figure this out for the life of me, but when someone is a guest on a show, and I've been a guest on people's shows, I share the show. Well, if you're not going to share the show, then why are you on? You need to promote yourself and not even get a thank you. Like I send someone a link, the link to their show, and I don't even get a response. No thank you or anything. And so if they want to be on again, no, they will not be on again. I think sometimes people just lose common courtesy. I don't know, but showing, just gratitude, thank you. That's what you have to say. Really, thank you for having me on. And manners, I always told my son this, manners, politeness goes a long way.
100%.
Excuse me. And I'm so glad that you had mentioned that because it's true. I am always grateful for an opportunity to share my story. And I love helping people. That's why I do the show. I love having people on. I learn from every guest. And I love to promote people. It's my pleasure. But when you don't receive feedback, it gets a little discouraging. So definitely, I understand that 100%. How did you transition, Dennis? It must have been a little challenging to go from Navy life, military life, to civilian life. Did you find it must have been challenging in some ways?
100%, Betsy. It was, and sometimes still is. And it's one of the reasons I wrote the book Transition on Purpose, was to talk about my transition. What did that look like from military service that didn't necessarily end the way you wanted it to end, but allowed you the opportunity to do things differently as you move forward into your next chapter. So I was really blessed by a mentor having a conversation about what I was going to do next. And I think it's probably helpful to your audience just to share a quick snippet of my career.
Sure.
As a naval officer. I was a surface warfare officer, which means I was a ship driver, and I had the ultimate opportunity to be a Navy ship captain, which was an awesome opportunity. And while I was a ship captain, we deployed, and when we deployed, we got a national tasking mission to support the 2014 Sochi Olympics. So we were there for maritime presence. We were there for maritime security. And, when it's a national tasking mission, your actions get briefed to the highest levels of the military and the civilian infrastructure. And while we were there, we had to check off station to go, I like to say, get gas and groceries. And as we were entering port, we had an operational mishap. We ran aground and we damaged our propeller. And we were deemed non-mission capable during a heightened time in the Black Sea region. And ultimately, because of the actions or the inactions of my team, I was relieved of command, and that's a fancy term for I was fired. So I was on top of the world, right? Because what I was doing was being briefed to the highest levels of our national command authority, and then I was fired. So you're on the highest peak, and then you're in the lowest valley, personally and professionally.
Yeah,
so
that'd be devastating.
Yeah, because up to that point in time of my adult life, Betsy, I spent 3 days not in the military. So my identity was as a naval officer. My role was a naval officer. So what I did was who I was, and who I was what I did. So when it was time to transition out of the military, I had to really figure out who I was and what mattered to me. And that started with my values. And I go back to that mentor conversation, and that's how I got into the sport of triathlon. Because my mentor said, you know what, you've got a lot going on. You need to get focused on something other than your professional misfortune to move yourself forward. And at the time, I wasn't a good swimmer. I still am not. I didn't even have really a triathlon bicycle, but I was a decent runner. But what that experience did, what that opportunity provided, was time and space. Time and space to dig into me, to dig into who am I, what matters to me, and what am I going to do about it. And that's what transition is all about, is identifying reality, really defining reality, defining success like we talked about before, looking at the obstacles and challenges that may exist, but also identifying what matters from a value standpoint, from a priority standpoint. Might sound familiar to that purposeful work stuff. And I was lucky enough to go through the Columbia coaching program and take that coaching framework and put it into a transition lens and provide your own personal kind of coaching journey to say, you know what, I've got some change happening, or I have had some change come into my life, and I want to transition to something new, something different, something better. How do you do it? And it's all of those things that we've talked about. I identified my values, right? And as a military officer, regardless of your service, you're going to have core values: honor, courage, and commitment for the naval services. But that's not really useful when you're trying to figure out your own life. And so being able to dive into what do I need in my life moving forward to allow me to be the best version of myself. And, those values now are autonomy. I need to be able to have a podcast conversation with the Betsy's of the world at, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. I need impact. I need connection, and I need security. So that's how I make my decisions, my personal decisions, my professional decisions. And that allowed me to do things to move in a positive direction. And I don't say it lightly. When you go into something and you have some misfortune and you hit rock bottom, it provides an amazing platform a really steady platform, a really solid platform to launch in a positive direction.
Absolutely. And I think it goes back, Dennis, to mindset. You know, talking about transition, you had the mishap with your career with the ship. I equated, when I was reading your book, I was thinking, man, caregivers need to read this book. Really, because when a caregiver transitions afterwards, do you know what they ask? I know I asked this myself. Who am I? Who am I now? And I asked that myself after my husband died. Said to a social worker who's getting grief counseling, I said, I don't know who Betsy is anymore. She said, well, what do you like to do? And, you know, what is important to you? She goes, and then that, excuse me, that is who Betsy is. And your book is so relatable to everyone. And I want the audience to know this. You don't have to be a veteran to buy this book and read it and benefit from it. I think every caregiver, and even if you're not a caregiver, I think everyone should get this book, because you know what? Change is constant. as you said, change is always happening. People ask themselves, who am I after their spouse dies, even if they weren't a caregiver. And I just think that your book is just so powerful. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for writing this book, because it really inspired me.
Well, thank you. And you make a great point.
Say that.
You know, when people used to ask me when I retired, tell me about yourself. Very often I would start with, I'm a retired naval officer. Because that was what I did. That's who I was, everything else. Now, when somebody says, hey, tell me about yourself, I start off with, well, I'm a husband. I'm an outdoor enthusiast. I'm a washed-up rugby player. I'm a washed-up lacrosse player. As a result, I'm a recreational triathlete. I'm a mentor. I'm an author. I'm a small business and entrepreneurial investor. I'm a Traeger grill guy. I'm a bourbon drinker. I'm a certified executive and performance coach. And I'm a retired naval officer. It's a different perspective.
Yes.
But it takes time. It takes time, it takes space, it takes reflection.
Absolutely. You are 100% right. It does take a while to transition, and, you know, everyone's different. I hear so many times, you know, from caregivers, who am I? What do I do now? And I'm like, well, you know what? Just like you said earlier, find your passion. You find your passion, you'll find your purpose. And what does light your fire? That's so true. What makes you get up in the morning? What, you know, sparks a flame in you? What feeds your soul? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. I have to quote this quote that you have in your book, Dennis. Samuel Beckett. I love this quote. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. That's F-A-I-L, folks, in case you can't understand my Jersey accent. We need to try. We can't be afraid of failing or what people think or what people perceive as failure. We just have to go for it sometimes. And
well, you talked about it earlier, Betsy.
Yes.
Failure is not trying.
Right. Big difference. You know, a huge difference. I have to ask you this as we end, Dennis. What would you like the readers to take away from your book?
The biggest thing that I would like readers to take away from Transition on Purpose is that anything is possible. Anything is possible with the understanding that life is a contact sport, and we're going to get knocked down from time to time. But life is also a team sport, right? Life is a team sport, and we get to pick our team. We get to pick our team. So pick your team wisely, because those are the people you're going to spend time with. Those are the people that you're going to spend life with. Those are the people who are going to challenge each other to make each other better. So that way you can make your community better, and, you know, the motherhood and apple pie kind of stuff, to make our world better. So that's the big thing. And action is the most important. But action starts with awareness of what really matters. Because once you know what really matters, once you have that clarity, you can focus your energy, attention, and effort on what matters, and you could succeed faster.
Great. That is wonderful advice. Where can people purchase your book, Transition on Purpose?
They can purchase it on Amazon, or they can go to transitiononpurpose.com, and there'll be a link there, and it'll take you right to Amazon. And one thing, I don't know if you and I talked about it, but as a veteran mentor, and somebody who has benefited from two different organizations. One is Camp Southern Ground down outside of Atlanta, and Camp Resilience up here in New Hampshire, that provide transition services for military veterans and first responders. All the profits from my book go to those two organizations.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that just makes me verklempt. That's just chilled. That is wonderful. I thank you, Dennis, so much for coming on. And can people get in touch with you on your website? Can they connect with you there?
Yes, absolutely. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, so they can get a hold of me there as well.
That is wonderful. I can't thank you enough for coming on, Dennis, and writing your book. Folks, I know it's only a few days before Christmas, but let me tell you, Transition on Purpose is a wonderful gift that you could give to someone that I think can change their life. That's how strong I feel about it. And I highly recommend giving this book as a gift any time of the year. You know, before you know it, it'll be Valentine's Day. I mean, time goes by so quick. If you know a caregiver, if you know a veteran, anyone who's going through a period of transition, this book will help them. Transition on Purpose by Dennis J. Volpe, Volpe, Commander, United States Navy, retired. Thank you, Dennis, for coming on the show and sharing your life and writing this book to help other people. And that, to me, is what life is about, is helping other people. So I thank you for helping others, inspiring others. I know you've inspired me, so I thank you for that. And, folks, I want to thank you for listening. And please share this show to help other people. That's why I'm here. I want to help other people. And I want to thank the audience again for listening. And if you don't already, subscribe to Chatting with Betsy. It is for free. I am on iHeart, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, to name a few. And that's my purpose, is really to help other people, to inspire other people by providing guests who can help you have a better life. That, believe me, I wish I knew a lot of the information that my guests give. I wish I knew in my youth, that's for sure. But it's never too late, folks. It's never too late to learn, to improve on yourself. I'm 66 years old, and I'm still a work in progress until the day I leave this earth. And that's just how I feel. And I just want to thank Jeanne White, who's the station manager, produces the show, writes the blog. All the information about Dennis Valapi will be in the blog, so please read the blog. And I want to thank Lillian Cauldwell, the CEO of Passion Talk Radio, who makes this all possible. And, folks, if you want to follow me on Facebook, it is Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel. And if you are a caregiver and you need support, or you're not a caregiver but you just want to learn about Alzheimer's and learn how to help caregivers, my support group is #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind. Shine your light bright. So important now. Much more important now than ever before. So keep shining, stay safe, and hope, well, this won't be posted until probably January or February, but hope everyone has a happy, safe holiday, whatever you celebrate, and be kind in the new year. Show kindness. It's easy. It's free. And that's what I have to say today, folks. Thank you for listening. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio, a subsidiary of Global Media Network LLC. Bye-bye now.